Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's Justice Now conversation sponsored by the National Urban League. I'm your host, Jerica Richardson, and I serve as the Senior Vice President for Equitable Justice and Strategic Initiatives at the League. And tonight we are here to talk about intergenerational activism. And this is an important topic because we know young people always have been at the forefront and sparking change. And we know that we are all stronger together when we work across generations. So I would like to introduce all of you that are joining us. Please come on in to two powerful young voices in the movement right now. One is my colleague, Shalondon Hollingshed, who currently is the president of the National Urban League Young Professionals, and a new president at that. So welcome, Shalondon. Welcome, Madam President.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, we are excited to have you for this conversation. And I also have to introduce an amazing young speaker and leader in his own right, Leek McMillan. And Leek is the National Director of Youth and College for the National Action Network, which is not only the National Urban League's one of our strongest partners, but it is one of the leading civil rights organizations of our time. Leek, thanks so much for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. I'm excited to join you both. So excited for the conversation.
Great. Well, why don't we just jump right on in? I think it's important, when we have you all on this platform, that we educate those who are tuning in about you and the work that you're doing and the work of your organizations. So, Shalondon, can you share a little bit about your work and your role as the head of the National Urban League Young Professionals, and tell us about what activism looked like for that group?
Yeah, so good evening, everyone. So as mentioned, my name is Shalondon Hollingshed, and I do serve as the president of the National Urban League Young Professionals. And our young professionals consist of individuals between the ages of 21 and 40 who support the Urban League movement through volunteerism, through philanthropy, and through membership development. And I like to tell people that we literally are a training ground for young professionals to grow into the best versions of themselves through advocacy and through volunteerism as we pursue the mission of the Urban League. And so across the country, we have thousands of young professionals, and you can see them hosting voter registration drives, voter education events. They're marching, they're in public hearings, they're hosting events on public education for various topics. They're right alongside our CEOs going to meetings with elected officials at the state, local, and national levels. And they're continually working to engage the community to push this movement forward.
Well, thank you, Shalondon. Leek, why don't you tell us a little bit about your organization? And I don't want to call you out age-wise, but you're 25, so I'm probably the senior member on this call. I'm not going to tell you all my age, but I would love for you to talk about your work at the National Action Network, because you are serving a group of young folks that overlap a little bit with those that Shalondon serves, but you're also reaching a group that's even younger than that.
Yeah, so I've had the honor of working with NAN, and I've actually started with NAN when I was 13 years old under the leadership of Reverend Sharpton. So I've grown under his mentorship and leadership, and I'm grateful to be in this position to serve young people across the country. As I say, we are turning influencing policy and making it the new norm, not the exception. And so we understand that if this movement will be sustainable, then young people should be at the table where decisions are being made about them. And so just putting young people in position to understand their political power, to know who they are, where they come from, to understand that we stand on the shoulders of giants, of sheroes and heroes, whose names we know and names we don't, but helping them understand the gravity of this moment and where we are and the responsibility that we all have. And so, like I said, it's intergenerational. And so just combining those two together, as Reverend Sharpton would say to me, and quote, it's not about a generation that knows it all or a generation that has all of the energy, but it's our synergy that makes this work possible. So just taking that and keeping that in mind.
I think that's really helpful. I mean, you both serve under really transformative leaders in the movement. And I would love to hear from each of you about what it's like to stand on shoulders of giants. What are the lessons that you have been learning just in the movement from those that have come before us, because I think each generation, we have the opportunity to, be ingenuitive and bring other ideas and fresh perspectives. But there are some things that we have learned from those who've come before us that are really tried and true in this work. Tyleek, do you want to go first?
Oh, of course. So one thing that I can say that I've learned is complacency is the enemy of accomplishment. We have so
Mhm.
much yet to accomplish. I think a lot of times we get comfortable with what we see, we get comfortable with what we have, we get comfortable with the lifestyles that we live, that we sometimes can stray away from the needs of the least of these, as the Bible teaches us. And so to understand that we still have so far yet to go. And though the struggles may look different than what they looked like in the 60s or the 70s, the struggles that we have are the struggles of our times. And I say it all the time, the dream that Dr. King dreamed of and gave at the Lincoln Memorial. Yes, we still hold on to those same principles as we are in this moment. But the issues change a long time. And so before, even though we may have got the access to the vote, the right to vote with the Voting Rights Act, here we are with surgical precision, as Attorney General Holder would say, surgical precision, where they are taking back the right to vote. But yet, so it looks the same, but we are still in similar times. So just holding on to that complacency is the enemy of accomplishment, and we still have so far yet to go.
I think that makes a lot of sense, Tyleek. And when you talk about voting rights, it makes me think of one of the birthplaces of the civil rights movement, Atlanta, Georgia, where Shalondon is right now. You're talking about surgical precision. Shalondon, I think you've seen up and close what it has looked like to see our access to the ballot box under attack. And you are surrounded in the Atlanta community by so much history, so many giants in the civil rights movement, and such strong leadership in Georgia, both in Atlanta and in Columbus as well. So why don't you talk a little bit about that experience being in Atlanta, and what are some of the lessons that you're learning in real time from our leaders of the past, our leaders of today, and your colleagues in this work?
Yeah, so, I always tell people that when I first came into the movement, I wasn't really engaged at all. I voted for the president and that was it, right? And so the young professional space in the Urban League really kind of introduced me into advocacy. And our leaders here, you're right, the history here is just so profound. I remember being at a celebration with Representative John Lewis and seeing him dance on the floor, like those type of experiences that many people don't get. And I'm reminded just in the 1960s of their perseverance, right? We talk about lessons learned, their determination, everything that they had to go through. They continued to fight and stand as champions for the civil rights movement. And they had to deal with intergenerational logistics as well, right? Congressman Lewis was like 25 during Bloody Sunday. Dr. King was in his early 30s when he gave the I Have a Dream speech. And even Whitney Young was a young professional when he became CEO of the Urban League. And so they were young professionals, but we also had people like Ella Baker, who was a champion for bringing youth into the movement. And so I'm very, very thankful for the lessons that they taught us in perseverance and determination, but also in understanding that the collective is needed to move forward.
I love that you lifted up Congressman Lewis. I had the opportunity to intern for him when I was in college, a little bit younger than 25, Tyleek, but I interned for him. And I actually had the opportunity to intern for him after being disenfranchised at the ballot box. So I really know and understand that the fight is real. And I really actually want to share a quote from Congressman Lewis, since you brought it up, and want to give you both the opportunity to react to it. So Congressman Lewis often spoke about the importance of young people and their role in fighting for justice. And he once said, "I want to see young people in America feel the spirit of the 1960s and find a way to get in the way. to find a way to get into trouble. Good trouble, necessary trouble. Now, I know y'all have seen the Good Trouble t-shirts, the Good Trouble films. I mean, I definitely think it is an important phrase within our movement. Talk a little bit to me about, what inspires you and what you define as good trouble. Because when we talk about the space of activism, it's broad. We're all doing the work in different areas and capacities. But Tyleek, maybe we'll start with you if you can kind of give me a sense of what good trouble, as Congressman Lewis would call it,
Yeah,
means to you.
yeah, of course. So first and foremost, John Lewis was a brother of Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated. So shout out to all of my Sigma brothers out there. Go Mob. I remember when I was a CBC intern. It was a year before he passed, and he spoke to our intern cohort, and it was him and Congressman Elijah Cummings. God rest their souls. And they had told us a story. He said, when I was on the Edmonds Pettus Bridge, they told us to go back. And he said, now they're continuing to tell us to go back. But he says, we are depending on a generation such as yours to stand up and fight in this moment. And they said, when we are dancing with the angels, we are depending on you. And so I took heed, and I held on to that of those words from them. So when I think of getting in good and necessary trouble, as he would say it, I think of whatever keeps me up at night, whatever, whatever shakes my soul that makes me, have that feeling on the deep inside of me that says I have to speak up and do something. Because the question is, that I ask myself is, when my children's children are looking back at this moment in history, would they say that their father stood on the right side of history or the wrong side of history? Did they say that he spoke up, or was he silent? And so I urge those who are listening today, you ask yourself that same question. When your children and when the history books are reading about this moment in history, what would they say that you did? And that's what keeps me going.
I love that. What will your children say about you? Did you speak up? Well, Shalondon, how have you and the young professionals at the National Urban League been speaking up and speaking out and making some good trouble? What does that look like for you?
Yeah, so I'm so thankful for the Urban League for creating this platform for young professionals to be engaged in civil rights, and all over the country. Again, our young professionals are engaged in educating our community on the issues that are important to them. And right now, our focus at the foundation is voting rights, because states are using their legislative power to suppress our votes, right? So we're being engaged at the local levels and educating people on the importance of voting, because their vote is our voice, right? If we don't have the individuals at the table who align with our values and beliefs, then it makes it very difficult for the things that we want to see happen come to place. And so good trouble for me is continuing to advocate on behalf of those in our underserved communities.
Thank you for that. We've made clear, I think, in this conversation that we all believe that voting is, the foundation of this democracy, and it's so important for us to protect it. But I also want to give the opportunity to lift up other issues that young folks really care about. Shalon, and I'm going to go right back to you. I know you just finished talking, but what are some of your priorities? What are some of the issues that you tend to hear from your constituents in the movement? What are the things that young people are talking about? What do they care about?
Yeah, so I think that some of the top issues that we're hearing, obviously, I haven't talked to a young professional who hasn't mentioned student loans to me. Student loans is an issue, and it's going to continue to be an issue until we come up with some type of reform or relief. But also criminal justice reform. I've heard of environmental justice issues and really understanding environmental racism, right? Even young professionals really focusing on our younger generations, focusing on mental health. And so we talk about generational trauma and education around that. So those are some of the top issues that have been circling, some of the things that we're kind of putting in the YP agenda to really focus on this year, with not only educating our leaders, but preparing them to educate their communities.
That's great. Tyleek, is there something that you have to add? Because I know you have the college folks who I'm sure care about student loans,
Yes, of course.
but then you also have younger folks that haven't even entered into that space.
Yeah, of course. On that student debt, look, if we can pause it, then we can cancel it. We continue to urge them to cancel student debt. But of course, on other issues, it's ranging from, as we understand, we was in the middle of the pandemic where many families had to struggle between having access to internet, and so whether it's issues from broadband and broadband build out and internet accessibility, or issues from food security, ensuring that communities are funded properly. As we look at our historically Black colleges and universities, make sure they're protected. As you see, I'm a proud graduate of the North Carolina Agricultural and Technical State University, and so ensuring that if our HBCUs are properly funded, and just ensuring that our communities get the things that we deserve, whether that's clean water, that's clean air, that's infrastructure, and that public housing and stuff are accommodated, that people have the right to live and have access to these basic human rights.
Well, shout out to HBCUs. I went to Spelman College. So yes, we want to make sure they're funded, and we want to make sure they're protected, because they really have come under attack. As we're fighting for democracy, we are also pushing back on hate and extremism, which we have seen has just had an uptick and become more in your face. I won't say it's new, because we know it's been here, but folks have been, I think, a lot more forthcoming with it, and we need to make sure our young people are protected and have safe spaces and environments to continue learning. And I also love that you lifted up, Tyleek, the emphasis on, the digital divide and equity, because so much of that is important. When we think about our young people, how many people were impacted by that during the pandemic? But I'll also add, when we think about, the technology that we're using today, social media, camera phones, smartphones, all of that actually is working to our advantage, I think, when we talk about the activism space. All we have to do is raise up, the tragedy of George Floyd and Eric Garner and Breonna Taylor, and I mean, so many others. And technology has been helpful in spreading the word, but also creating more transparency. Shalondon, can you kind of reflect for us on 2020? It really was a pivotal year. And how, in your opinion, has social media given voice to so many young people in the movement?
Yeah, so I think that social media has really revolutionized activism, right? So when you think back to the 60s, they had limited tools when it came to highlighting the police brutality and the violence that was happening against Black people. And today we have essentially publishing platforms at our fingertips, and we can, to your point, bring awareness to people of issues at a high speed and with efficiencies. And I think we saw that even with the murder of George Floyd, when it happened, the national and international support for Black lives that occurred in just days, that was in part due to the technology and due to the digital activists of that time that were sharing that information live. And I think also, too, in addition to just being able to get the speed in terms of reaching people, the movement has, in a sense, been decentralized, right? So we can kind of curate what we want to share. And when we noticed that Breonna Taylor's life wasn't getting the attention and support that it deserved, digital activists were using the Say Her Name hashtag to bring awareness to the police brutality that was happening against women, right? So I think that technology and social media have definitely for sure allowed us to reach people faster, but also empowered us to kind of curate the agenda and message.
I love that. And Tyleek, just thinking about it from a National Action Network standpoint, I mean, you all have been leaders on the ground and organizing people and bringing them together. How has social media and technology in general aided you in your efforts?
Yeah, I echo the same words. It galvanizes folks to understand what's actually happening. And I think a lot of times when you watch, main media, certain things aren't shown and certain things are shown. But I think what's key about, online activism, it allows you to share the word from on the ground, people who are experiencing the realities in the community every day. I remember, being in Minneapolis and being there at George Floyd Square And being able to directly talk with folks who are keeping up with the memorial that's still there to this day, who are out in the trenches every single day, and you get a real feeling of what's actually happening, what folks are feeling. But social media allows us to really feel the emotions of everyday people in the communities.
I want to actually ask you a question that was shared in the chat. The question was, what prepared you for your leadership roles? Tyleek, do you want to start first, and Shalondon share? And I think it's important that folks hear from you, because there are so many young folks that are passionate about these issues. They want to get involved. They care about activism. But they're trying to figure out what's their role, where do they fit in? How does one lead in this work? So tell us a little bit about your journey, Tyleek.
Yeah, of course. So for me, what grounded me, I want to give honor to my great grandmother. I remember sitting with her at a very young age. She used to watch like MSNBC and CNN for a living. Like she would watch it like we watched Housewives or something. And I used to talk to her like are these the ones who are running the country? And it was that moment and that exposure from my grandmother that got me involved and wanted to know more and to do more. But being able to connect with the work, it was watching my single Black mother, shout out to Black women, give her last so that I may be in the position that I am in today. And then so I remember the struggles growing up, and my father, currently being incarcerated, and having those experiences, that many people feel and many people know. And it was those personal things that happened in my life that really drew me to this work. And that what keeps me in this work is grounded is in knowing that. And so I shout out to my mother, shout out to my grandmother, and all of life's challenges that was thrown at me that prepared me for this moment.
Yes, shout out to all the amazing women that I know have shaped each and every one of us that's on this call. It's Women's History Month, y'all, so we got to do it. Make
Yes.
sure that we do it. Shalondon, what about you? Tell us a little bit about your journey to leadership.
Yeah, so when I joined the Urban League, I truly do believe in that quote that you can find yourself losing yourself in the service of others. And when
That's
I
it.
joined the Urban League,
Very
it was
cool.
really me just trying to serve the community, not really knowing how to use my gifts, not really knowing what gifts I had, not really knowing what my passion was or, kind of my purpose. It was really just kind of to get into service. And through my role in the Urban League, I was constantly pushed past my comfort zone, right? And that's kind of how I grew in this leadership space, where, and I often tell people this all the time, that, we talk about younger mentors, older mentors, but sometimes we forget the peer mentorship. And I had a lot of individuals in the young professional space correcting me, encouraging me, guiding me, and really kind of pushing me in leadership in the Urban League. And so I tell people my first role in the Urban League was membership chair. And if most people know me, they knew me as an introvert who, wasn't didn't go out a lot. And so some people question, why are you serving as the membership chair of the organization? But again, people also saw leadership in me, and it was me stepping out of my comfort zone. In that capacity, and each role that I took was me stepping out of my comfort zone and utilizing whatever talents and whatever gifts I had, and just said, hey, I'm available. And so usually what I tell young professionals when they come into the movement, if there's any advice I can give you, is show up, whatever capacity that looks like for you in this space, if it's virtual or if it's in person, if it's at an event or if it's a speaker, just start showing up. I promise you, people will start giving you work, and some of it's going to be outside of your comfort zone, and you're going to find yourself slowly growing and doing things that you didn't think that you could do, and being places that you never thought you would be. But I think it starts with really just taking the step to show up.
It is so important to show up. And, I would love to talk a little bit more about what this work is like. Because, we touched on, I think, a lot of the positives, a lot of the new tools that really help increase the work. But we got to be honest, y'all, there's sometimes challenges. It's not always easy, and there's some struggles. And I want to hear from you all about, what are some of those challenges that you all have experienced being young people in this movement and being engaged in this, activism and work? And how do you push back against them? How are you able to overcome them? Tyleek, do you want to share?
Yeah, of course. And so I think first and foremost, being 25 years old and being not far removed from college, a lot of times I'm grateful and grateful to my boss and mentor, Reverend Sharpton, and our senior VP, Ebony Riley, for, being able to be in spaces, I never would have dreamed this country boy from a one-stop-light town will be sitting
Mhm.
and going in the White House and sitting at tables with the speaker and sitting at tables with world leaders, and sitting beside Martin Luther King III, and being able to do this work. I dreamed of doing this work. To be able to do this, I'm grateful for it. A lot of times, being in these rooms, I can be the youngest one in the room, and so you have that pressure of, does my voice matter? Do they want to listen to me? But one thing that my mother always taught me, and one thing that, I was that Southern Baptist boy in church, always up in the pulpit, just to stand firm on what you believe on, stand firm on your struggle, stand firm on who you are, where you come from, and know that your story matters. And you are there for a reason. God sent you there for a reason, and understand that you have a purpose in life. And your name was put in places that you have yet to enter. And so when you enter into those places where your name is, you walk in it with your head held high and your shoulders lifted, because you were meant to be there. And so just understanding that.
I love that. And shout out to Ebony Riley. Shalondon talked about peers who lift you up and support you and encourage you. And Ebony has absolutely been that for me. So my sister from Nan, many thanks to Ebony. She's amazing and she's doing the work and, help me be able to get more comfortable with the seat at the table. Sometimes we struggle from imposter syndrome. So I know that's one of the challenges I personally have faced. Shalondon, what about you? What have been some of the challenges that you've encountered or experienced in this work?
Yeah, so when it comes to the Urban League, I am a volunteer, and so one of the biggest constraints that I have is time. Right, we wish we had more time to give as much as we could, because there's so many things that we could be doing and there's so many things that need to be done. So in addition to the time and the resources, obviously, when we're talking about intergenerational activism, there's sometimes our competing priorities, and sometimes the methods that one generation understands, another generation doesn't understand, and so those conversations need to be had. I would also say that sometimes there have been struggles with simply getting a seat at the table for some young professionals, and really feeling valued at the table. Again, I have to give credit to the Urban League, because in the 80s and 90s, they saw the need to create this space for young professionals to have a seat at the table. And so while in many groups, and we're still working to improve and get better, but while many young professionals struggle with just getting in the room, getting at the table, getting on the calls, our CEOs and our leaders in the movement are giving our young professionals seats on their boards. They're taking them to various meetings with elected officials. And so I think that seat at the table is so key in terms of moving forward, and just remembering that not just having them be there, but giving them a voice while they're at the table as well.
Thank you for sharing that. And it's important that we talk about the experiences now. We talk about, the improvements, how things are moving forward, but that we're still very crystal clear about what work needs to be done to continue to lift up new generations of leaders to join other generations in the work. One of the things that has been, when I think of activism, really is a term that has come to, in many ways, define the movement for us. And that's the term Black Lives Matter. And so I want to throw that term out to you all right now. Tyleek, Shalondon, in that order, what does Black Lives Matter mean to you?
Oh, well, Black Lives
I know
Matter.
it's a loaded question. It's heavy.
It means a lot. It means that initially it means to me that we must value Black lives, and how can we value anything else if we can't value the lives of Black people. When I think of Black Lives Matter, I think of economic and political and social justice and understanding that we have access, that we are afforded the opportunity that this country stands on. As we talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, understanding that those opportunities are afforded to our people. I mean, we were oppressed. We were the ones that came over here not by choice but by force. And so when we say Black Lives Matter, we say that those opportunities should be afforded, and our lives have value, and we can't put anything above that.
Absolutely, our lives do have value. Shalonda, is there anything you want to add?
Yeah, no, I echo his sentiments. I would just say, recognizing that we are human, right? And that our human rights deserve to be protected and respected in every industry. When I hear various different numbers and statistics and how we are disproportionately affected in almost every category, right? That to me says that there's an opportunity that somewhere someone didn't respect us when they put that landfill right next to our home, right? So really looking at respecting and protecting us as humans, to me, that really it really kind of pushes out what Black Lives Matter to me.
Protected and respected. Very powerful. And we definitely need to keep that in mind, because we don't always feel that and we don't always see that. And so we need to work to make sure that that happens for our people. Well, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I know our time is coming to a close, but I want to give each of you just the opportunity to share a few words of wisdom if you have them, any advice for young people who want to get involved and be engaged, and just in 1 or 2 words at the end of all that, tell us what the future looks like for you. What does activism and the future of activism in your work, in your generation, what does that mean? So I know I asked a lot of questions, but I'm trying to get all the jewels from you all before we wrap. Tyleek, do you want to start? And then Shalonda, and we'll have you close us out.
Yeah, in closing, well, first and foremost, it's an honor to be here with both of you all, and shout out to Black women, as I say again, leading in spaces and doing the work, and continue to pray you all's success. But in closing, words that I would say, the greatest respect of a leader is a leader who understands when they can pour, and a leader who understands when they need to be poured into. And so I say that all to say, yes, this work is very important, and it's very, very, it can be very hard work, but you have to learn when to protect your personal peace, your personal comfort, to know when you have to pull back, step away, to cut off your phone, to shut the world down, because when you shut it down, it'll still be there. It'll still be there. So just understanding when you can pour and when you can be poured into. And so I will give that amount of advice. And what I would say with the future of activism, future activism is what it is. It would change and it will evolve over time, and the issues will become more complex. But as long as we stay steadfast, as long as we keep our feet to the fire and hold people accountable, I believe that we can win. As you know, Assata Shakur said, it is our duty to fight for our freedom. It is our duty to win. We must love and protect one another, because we have nothing to lose but our chains.
Oh, Tyleek, you were dropping all the gems this evening. I don't think I even have enough fingers to snap. I love it. And thank you for those inspirational words. Before I turn to Shalonda, can you take a minute, Tyleek, to just drop in the chat either the handle for you and how folks can reach you or your organization, what your division at NAN or National Action Network, whatever is the best way for young folks that are tuning in to get involved. We want to make sure we share that information and lift it up. Shalonda, and I'll ask you to do the same, but before you type, I want to hear what words you have to share and any encouragement you have for the young people on here.
Yeah, so, I would just say keep going, right? I know that there are a lot of things that we still have to work through, and I know the struggle is still real, but I'm hopeful because of the small wins that we do have. We are on the verge of having the first Black female U.S. Supreme Court justice. And those type of things give me hope, right? In spite of all of these other things that we're battling. And so I would just say, keep going, don't give up. That change is coming. And I think the future looks diverse, right? And that excites me, because when I think that when we have a diverse group of people at the table, that's when we really will see the sustainable change that we're hoping to see.
I love that. You know, things are changing, and we have just really this dynamic, multicultural movement with people from all stripes, all walks of life getting involved in, as we said earlier, when we're talking about intergenerational activism, we are stronger together. And I truly believe we are starting to see the fruits of our labor. We've seen the fruits of that push in 2020, and we're continuing to march on. So Shalondon and Tyleek, thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Justice Now. It was so great to hear from you, to hear about your personal journey. And, you know, please keep doing the work. You know, you inspire me, and I know you inspire so many others. We all have the opportunity to lead. And, you know, I want to remind folks that leadership is action, not position. You know, Madam President, Mr. President, you all are doing the work. You are acting. And so thank you for that. Thank you for taking these opportunities to pour into us, into everyone that has tuned in right now. So thank you for joining us tonight. Thanks to everyone who's joined us for this Justice Now conversation. And remember, the time for justice is always, always right now. Thanks, y'all. Have a good evening.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Bye-bye.